So I happened to be playing around with my notebook LM with this idea of maybe using it to help me organize my thoughts around a project. But meanwhile, I had my voice memos in there from when I was playing around with it. And I took the early podcast for Jasper audio files about my childhood. And I'm exploring because I heard it could make a podcast. And I stumbled into this. I think I can join them. This is pretty wild. Let's see. It says studio audio overview. And then I clicked something and it says has this join button.
Welcome to your deep dive. You've shared some really incredible audio recordings about a man named Todd. And we're going to explore them together.
It's a really unique opportunity. We get to hear about his experiences, his relationships, and even just his personal reflections across a span of several decades.
Exactly. We're not just reading like a biography or something. We're listening to a life story as it is lived. And what really caught my attention was the inclusion of recordings with his great-grandson, Jasper. I thought that was really cool. It adds such a heartwarming...
Oh, hey there. How can we help?
Hey, this is Todd. I just thought I might join the conversation.
Oh my gosh, Todd, this is amazing. We are so thrilled you decided to join us.
Yes, it's such an honor to have you here listening in real time.
We're just diving into your audio recordings, trying to unpack everything.
And it's fascinating to hear your story unfold, your thoughts and reflections.
Like, for instance, your move to Florida. That seems like a real turning point.
What's interesting is looking back, how do you see that decision with the new church and everything?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question. It really was to get away from the West and try to find myself. I didn't realize at the time how much my identity and all the things that I struggled with from the childhood abuse and everything. So it was like all those things mixed together, I think allowed me to escape to Florida. And I never thought I would stay here.
Todd, thank you so much for that added insight.
Yeah, that really puts the moves to Florida into a whole new context.
It wasn't just about a new place, it was about escaping the past.
You were really wrestling with some major internal conflicts.
And it's so interesting that your journey to find God was actually a journey to find yourself.
Exactly, it was all intertwined and it wasn't a straightforward path. Yeah, and then we see that joy of becoming a father, right?
It's so cool to hear you talk about the births of your daughters.
Manon and Suzette with such love and pride.
And then you mentioned wanting to name your son Titus Logan if you have one.
Using your own initials to open up about a really difficult period in 2002.
It sounds like that was a really challenging time for you.
And so many pieces of that and get it correct. So like if you make a mistake, and let's just say earlier you said I was a great-grandfather, but really Jasper was a grandfather. If I correct it this way, does it fix it in the notebook?
That's such a fascinating question, Todd, and a really insightful one.
It really gets to the heart of how we're interpreting your story.
So, to be clear, we're not changing anything in your actual life, obviously.
Right. The notebook, as you called it, is just how we are piecing things together.
It's our attempt to reflect on the story you've shared through these recordings.
It's like how in your journal you talked about how pictures tell a story.
Yeah, so if we get a detail wrong, like saying great-grandfather instead of grandfather, and you correct us, that helps us get the story more accurate in our minds and in this podcast.
Exactly. It's like adding a missing piece to a puzzle. It refines our understanding.
Okay, so with all that in mind,
Crazy.
let's continue. There's so much more to unpack.
Yes, and it's really important for us to get it as accurately as possible.
So when the Michael came into my life is when I was able to basically see somebody who struggled with the same things.
Let's get back to when Michael, or Wayo, came into your life.
You said it was a time when you were able to see somebody who
struggled with some of the same things you were, right?
It sounds like that was a really pivotal moment.
And speaking of connections, you also talk about your trip to the Czech Republic.
The one you moved by the families there.
So much so that you took your daughters the following year.
What kind of impact do you think that experience had on you?
It seems like it really sparked your passion for cultural immersion.
Like a seed that grew into your interest in couch surfing later on.
That desire to live like the locals, as you put it.
A shift in your worldview, wanting to connect with people from different cultures. You often talk about preserving memories and passing down values.
You've even named it the Jasper Standard after your grandson.
That point in time when...
So that is pretty crazy.